All right, guys, we are back in my garage for another video, and today we're going to be reviewing not just one, but two oil analysis reports from my BMW X7. This is going to be super helpful because the first one, we're going to test the mystery oil that the car came with. Since I don't know the oil change history and maintenance that has been done on the car before I got it, I was curious about, just the overall health of the engine and how it was holding up. The second oil report is coming from my most recent oil change, which I have to admit, I went over 10,000 miles on my oil change interval. I know that's completely sacrilegious for an enthusiast to even consider doing that, but I have a really good reason. It was cold outside and I didn't feel like it. So yeah, we're gonna take a look and see one, what is the condition of the engine and the car when I got it, and two, how bad did we mess things up by going over the 10,000 mile oil change interval. So in this video, we'll take a look at the results and I'll share that with you guys so you can kind of make that decision for yourself. And as always, hopefully you guys find this video useful. Now, before we jump into it, I gotta ask, what do you guys think we're gonna see here? Especially if you've done this kind of testing before, what kind of results have you experienced, or what do you expect to see on a car that goes 10,000 plus miles between oil changes? Is it just gonna be completely catastrophic, or maybe it's really no big deal? I'm definitely curious to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. Also, shameless plug, but the 0W20 hater shirts are in stock on the merch store, so I will also have that linked in the video description in case you want to buy one for yourself. Highly recommend it, but obviously I am a little bit biased. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at these results. And of course, I'll share on the screen exactly what I'm looking at. But this testing was done by Blackstone Laboratories. If you're in the United States, you're hopefully already familiar with them. If not, you definitely should try to get up to speed. And I'm sure there are other companies in other countries that offer a similar service. But what these guys do is they take an oil sample from your car and measure it to let you know things like the condition of your engine, what kind of wear metals you're going to find in your engine, what kind of things could be going wrong. They also test the oil itself to measure its viscosity, see what's inside of it, see how much of the additives and good things are still in it as well. And so hopefully this can help you understand both the health of your engine as well as confirm that you're doing your oil change intervals on time. So they kind of measure both things to help you understand if there's anything that could need to be addressed before it does become more catastrophic and potentially damages your engine. So I've been doing testing with these guys for several years now. I honestly meant to do this first video on my first oil change last year when I did the oil change, but I've just been going a million miles an hour and it's taken forever to get to this point. So we're catching up. This is actually from an oil change that I did in June of 2025 from a car that I bought in October of 2024. So I bought it with about 62,000 miles. And in June of 2025, I was at around 71,000 miles. So I did about 9,000 miles in 8 months or so. So did a lot of driving with that car. Like I've posted before, we do towing, long road trips and stuff like that. And these are the results. So at the top of the report, they just kind of give you quick comments, their kind of analysis of the data. And what it says is, first of all, unfortunately, we didn't have enough oil to run all of our tests. That is actually my fault. I was doing the oil change and realized at the last minute that I wanted to test the sample to make sure I could at least see the health of the engine with the original oil that the dealership put in. So I had to go look, found my oil sample kit, and when I got under the car and tried to collect it, there was only a little bit left. So I wasn't able to fill up the container they gave me. But they did say, while the viscosity and flashpoint tests take a lot of oil, the tests that they could run, like the spectral and insolubles, yielded great results. Compare the wear metals to universal averages for a B58, and those are based on about 5,100 mile oil changes. And while we're not sure how many miles are on this oil, nothing in the type, amount, or balance of wear metals is a cause for concern. That part, I think they might not have noticed that it was 9,000 miles on the oil change. So definitely much higher than the 5,100 mile average from samples that people have been sending in, but just keep that in mind. Insolubles are oxidized solids that form due to heat and use were low, indicating effective oil filtration. So they recommend resampling after another 5,000 miles. That's pretty much the universal recommendation if you go across the internet. So that's on track with what I've heard. All right, so looking at the actual data, nothing really jumped out at me. The only thing that was a little bit high was iron. We see 19 parts per million compared to 13 in the average, but again, doing a longer oil change interval, that's probably expected. Also, you can kind of see things like titanium are significantly higher. I'm not sure what in our car titanium would come from, but 17 compared to 4, that's over quadruple what it typically is. So I'm gonna have to do a little more research to figure out where that could be coming from. But everything else looks pretty good. And they kind of separate this into a couple different categories. I recommend going to the Blackstone website. They have a full breakdown. I've even got my cheat sheet over here in case I need to review my notes. But they're looking at a lot of different things here. Some of them aren't great. Some of them are like wear metals, so stuff that's wearing inside of the engine. Some of them are contaminants, so it can be things that aren't in the engine, but can get added to the engine from things like coolant, dirt, stuff like that. And then they've also got additives that are in the oil. So those are actually good things. And the more you have, the better. So the wear metals are looking good. And then if you look at the contaminants, things like potassium, silicone, sodium, all of those are relatively low. So no real issues there. Most everything is below like 10 parts per million, which I think is good. And then if you look at some of the additives, things like calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, zinc, all of those are high over, 700 or 800 in some cases. So all of that is looking good as well. I do think it's a little bit lower than some of the averages, especially calcium, but that could be due to the oil that I'm using or that was used in the car, I guess I should say. I don't know what oil everybody else is using that's submitting these samples, but if it has more calcium when it starts, then it should have more calcium when you do the oil change. And of course, it could also be some of that is going away with the longer oil change interval. So again, nothing that jumps out to me too much of a concern except for the titanium being over quadruple what it is on the averages here, and then the iron being higher than what they typically see. Then after that, when you go to the bottom, it looks at the actual oil properties. So they're looking at things like viscosity, flash point, and dilution of the oil from fuel, antifreeze, water, and insolubles. Here you can see again, as they noted before, you can't really see the viscosity, which I was really disappointed by. I was hoping we would at least get some data there because that could maybe help us understand if it was 0W20 that they used or maybe something thinner or thicker. But unfortunately, my mistake, we didn't get that data. But there's no antifreeze dilution, no water dilution, barely any insolubles. So from that standpoint, it looks good. So went ahead and did my usual thing. Like I've mentioned in previous videos, I run Liquimoly 0W30, their FE oil that meets the LL01 FE recommendation from BMW. Put that in the car. And like I said, June of 2025, drove it, hit around the 10,000 mile interval right when we got like the really bad blizzards and stuff like that. So I drove it for another like week and a half or so before I actually got to do the oil change. I waited for it to get up to 30 degrees, which felt like summertime during those months, and did the oil change at that point. So let's go ahead and look at those results. So starting off with their comments, it says we had enough sample to run all of our tests this time and everything came back perfect. The flash point is high enough above the should be value to rule out any measurable fuel dilution, and the viscosity is within the expected range for 0W30. No other contaminants turned up either. Some wear metals are higher than last time, so maybe this was a longer run. Regardless, nothing in the wear profile looks excessive for a 10,100 mile oil run. So internal parts remain in good working condition. The TBN is plenty strong. A 12,000 mile interval is doable next time. I didn't say it, but going off of their recommendation, they feel like these results look perfectly fine. The 10,000 mile interval didn't show anything of significant concern, so I could even add an extra 1 or 2,000 miles if I wanted to in the future. Now, that being said, I want to actually look at the data for myself, so let's see what we see. First thing, again, iron is high. It's over or about double what the normal average is. Again, that is based on a 5,000 mile oil change based on their previous note, but still it's much higher than you'd probably want to see on this kind of report. So just keeping in mind, it's going to wear, right? Your oil is lubricating the engine, but it is slowly wearing over time, and you're going to see some wear metals. That is normal, but seeing it that high would probably be a cause for concern for most people. But again, double the typical oil change interval on these reports is probably going to yield double the typical wear metals in your oil. So not immediately a cause for concern based on the oil change interval at hand. Looking at titanium here, it's gone back down. So again, I don't know why it was so high on that previous interval, but now it's back to 2 parts per million. The typical average is 3 compared to the 17 that we saw in the previous test. That could be from a lot of things, especially because I got the oil sample right at the end. It might have been just picking something up. I'm not really sure. So that was a weird test result, but from this test, it gives me a lot more confidence that nothing is wrong. And this is why you want to check your oil over and over and monitor it over time to see if those flukes really could be nothing but noise. Then everything else that I'm looking at looks okay. I think from, the wear metals, again, nothing really jumps out at me. Most everything is less than 10 parts per million. Looking at the contaminants, everything again looks good. Silicone is good, sodium is good. Then looking at the additives, the good thing is a lot of them are much higher than they were before. So the calcium is higher. Now we've got over 12,000 parts per million. Magnesium is over 900 parts per million. The phosphorus and zinc are about the same and about the average, maybe a little bit lower than what the averages were. But again, that could just be going away from a longer oil change interval. So I would say from this standpoint, the liquid moly is probably coming with more additives out of the box. This is also why personally, I don't do additional additives on top of the oil, because a lot of the high quality oils that we are using already come with additives. So if you add additional liquids and treatments and stuff to your oil, all you're doing is further diluting it from what is already in the mix. And if you get test results like this that indicate everything is fine, then you're basically just pushing it in a weird direction. Not really something that I would focus on if the oil is already doing its job. Now, that being said, a lot of those are lower, like the calcium is like 70% of the typical average. I don't know if that's from the oil change interval or if it's from a lot of people using different oils. So maybe I can try a different oil other than liquid moly in the future. But as I've said again in the past, I've been using it for years. It's done great by me on the road and the track. So it just kind of works. But everything otherwise looks pretty good. So I can see why they say it seems like a longer oil change interval would be fine. Nothing is wearing at an accelerated rate. You just see a little bit higher wear on some things like the iron because the interval is longer. So to me, that pretty much matches what you would expect. Then the last thing, again, the oil properties. So looking at the viscosity, we can see that we are on the low end of what it's saying the value should be for both the SUS and the CST, but the flash point is much higher than it should be at 410 compared to 385. So I think, again, just from the longer oil change interval, that's indicating that it is getting close to the limit, and I probably don't want to go much longer than 10,000 miles, especially on this oil. There might be other oils where you could go longer, but I'm not somebody that says run a thicker oil to maintain a longer oil change interval. I would just rather change my oil more frequently. I think that's a much better solution, especially because this indicates that it's giving us adequate lubrication while giving us the fuel efficiency and stuff that we need and expect from a B58, especially in a 6,000 pound SUV. And then all of the other contaminants look good. So there's no fuel dilution, no antifreeze dilution, water dilution, little to no insolubles. And the TBN came back at 3.8, which is great. They expect it to be over 1. So very happy with these results. Again, I'm probably not going to do a 12,000 mile interval, but this does kind of prove that the car is doing what it should with the oil that I'm using to make it last as long as possible. So more coming soon. Of course, we'll keep doing these. I may try a different oil in the future. I did just replace it this time with liquid moly 0W30. It's hard to beat the FCP free lifetime warranty with this kind of stuff. But, maybe we'll be able to find out with all the road trips and towing and draggy runs and pretty much using this car for everything I can. I might want to try something different just to see if it yields better results. I just don't see anything here that indicates that going over 10,000 miles was the end of the world. So let me know if you think differently, if you see anything here that you think is a cause for concern. As always, curious to hear your thoughts. And as a reminder, I highly recommend doing these tests for yourself. This is a great point of reference for me because it says that my car, based on my driving style and my fuel quality and my ambient conditions, have these kinds of results. Your results could be very different if you use your car differently. If your car has more miles or less miles, if your car was built on a Monday instead of a Friday. I mean, there are a lot of different things that could change how your specific car and driving style and everything works out with the oil that you're going to be testing. So nothing beats getting your own data and making decisions based on that. And that's why I would highly recommend all of you get your own results so that you can decide if you want to run thicker oil or thinner oil, if you want to do shorter or longer oil changes. All of that will be up to you when you have the report and data in your hand to make that decision. So that's my spiel on this, and these are my results. Again, I feel really good about it, so we'll just keep driving the car and doing what we're doing, and stay tuned because, of course, we'll be doing more of these analyses in the future to see how everything's holding up long term. But for now, I think that's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.